Okay, we're a couple minutes to noon. We're going to wait a couple more minutes, let people get on, and then we're going to get started. Whoever gets on first, let me know if you can hear me okay. I see that we have one viewer already. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. A couple weeks ago, I sounded like Alvin and the Chipmunks, so hopefully we got that resolved. Um, we've got 3 viewers now. Thank you guys for showing up. We're going to get started here in about 2 minutes. So stick with me if you have any questions. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Susan. Welcome, everybody. If you have any questions, just let me know. Just type them in, and I'll make sure they get answered. Before we get started, if there's any other questions, just let me know. I hope everybody's staying healthy. Hi, Uncle Tom, out in Arizona. Are you texting from the golf course or commenting from the golf course, I assume? Looking forward to seeing you in a couple weeks for Thanksgiving. I hope everybody is staying healthy out there. We're starting in about 2 minutes. Got 11 viewers already. Wow. Our last one got about 281 views, which is a new record for us, and got a lot of helpful information out there to people. So I hope this chapter 13 is equally as successful and gets information out there, because a lot of people in need right now. Make sure if you have any questions, you post them in the comments. Throughout the cast, I'm going to make sure I answer any questions that you guys have. Thank you to Artillis and Gabriella for setting this up, getting everything organized. The behind the scenes work is actually more difficult than being on camera, so I really appreciate you guys getting everything set up. We're going to start in about 1 minute. Chapter 13, Myths, Misconceptions, and Reality. And then, of course, we're going to do the live Q&A. Judge Phil, welcome. Hopefully you're on your morning walk, enjoying this beautiful weather in South Florida. Okay, we got about 1 minute, and then we're getting started. Ira, you should help me teach this class, Ira. We'll let you talk about the 341 meetings. Thanks for showing up. All right, so it's right at noon, so let's get this party started, as they say. So chapter 13, myths, misconceptions, and reality. I'm Chad Van Horn. I'm the owner of Van Horn Law Group. We have a great team here that handles chapter 13. I personally have been involved in over 4,000 bankruptcy matters. Certified consumer bankruptcy attorney. I like to say we've seen everything, but as soon as I say that, something like a pandemic happens, and then something new comes. So we're gonna go through all the Chapter 13 bankruptcies that I've seen, all the different things that Chapter 13 bankruptcy can assist with. First off, what is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy? So Chapter 13 bankruptcy is a repayment plan over a 36 to 60 month, 3 to 5 year plan that was designed originally to help people save their homes. So if you fall behind on your mortgage, you fall behind with an association, instead of them being able to foreclose, the Chapter 13 forces the creditor to take a payment plan of your arrearage over that 36 to 60 month period. So if you lost your job or had some sort of unexpected expense and you were out of work for a couple months, when you got back, it obviously wasn't fair for you to lose your house because of that. So the Chapter 13 was a backstop for that, for you to use to save that. It's also good with saving vehicles as well, and we'll go into more details of that. Basically, in a Chapter 13, every month you're going to make one plan payment to a trustee. That trustee is going to pay your creditors. So if you're getting caught up on a mortgage, if you have some unsecured creditors, the trustee will make those payments and break it down. Makes it very easy for you. You can pay online, you make one payment, and then the trustee figures out who gets the money. So the number one question I get from clients is, well, how is the payment calculated? Do I just take my total debt, divide it by the number of months, and pay? That's not how it's calculated. So there's a couple different tests that the Chapter 13 courts use. The first is the liquidation analysis. The creditors must get paid what they would get paid through a Chapter 7 liquidation. So basically, what you do is you take your non-exempt assets. So there's the difference between exempt and non-exempt assets. Exempt, you get to keep. They don't count in this liquidation analysis. Most common example of that, your homestead exemption, $1,000 vehicle exemption, $1,000 personal property exemption. Those are some of the common. Your 401k is exempt. But anything that's above those exemptions, you have to pay back. So if I had a $10,000 vehicle, only a $1,000 vehicle exemption, I'd have to pay at least $9,000 back to my unsecured creditors. The other way is the CMI or Schedule I and J, which is basically a budget of what you would have disposable income based on your last 6 months worth of income and the IRS allowed expenses. So we do an analysis. It's called the means test to figure out, based on your expenses, what would you have left over to pay to the creditors. And you basically pay that amount over a 36, 60 months to the unsecured creditors. Now, that's not how it's determined for secured creditors. Secured creditors are very different. Most of the time, secured creditors are paid back in full over time, but I'm going to talk about how you can cram and do some other things. So with a secured creditor, whether it be a mortgage or a car, if you fall behind, you have the right to pay that arrearage, as we call it, the back payments, over a 36 to 60 month period while maintaining your current payments moving forward. That's called a cure and maintain plan. Also, we do what's called the MMM, mortgage modification mediation. That's a negotiation with the secured creditor, in this case the mortgage holder, to come up with a mortgage payment where you'll end up paying them potentially directly if you come to an agreement. That also can save you on the trustee fee. It's 10% trustee fee. So if you have a $2,000 payment, a 10% trustee fee, that's $200 a month. That could be pretty hefty. So if you can reach an agreement outside of the cure and maintain, that usually is the best bet for all parties involved, creditor and debtor, because you're taking out that middleman. Also, there's something called cram down. This can be done with investment properties. This can be done with vehicles that you've owned over 910 days. Basically, you can bring down the secured debt down to the current value of the property. So if you have a vehicle that's worth $10,000, you owe $15,000, you can bring that $15,000 debt down to $10,000, pay it over that 3 to 5 years, and you generally speaking pay around a 5% interest rate on it. And it usually ends up being a great deal because we all know as soon as you drive that car off the lot, you don't have equity in it. And there's a lot of bad deals out there, it seems like, in vehicles. So we've been very successful with doing that with vehicles. You can also do that with rental properties, not homestead properties, because those are exempt from the cram down. And if you had a rental property that was worth $60,000, you owed $100,000, you bring it down to current market value, that's $60,000. You pay the $60,000 at approximately 5% interest rate over that 3 to 5 year period. It's usually not feasible because the numbers are much higher with investment properties, but sometimes that does work. It works much better in a Chapter 11, which we'll talk about at another time. Another question, another big question that people are bringing up is, how will this affect my student loans? So student loans, there's a couple ways that these can impact your student loans. First off, they will be included in your unsecured payment if you do nothing. So once you file a Chapter 13, student loan collections cease, and it'll go into the Chapter 13 monthly payment, which is good. It'll give you a 3 to 5 year break. But what happens at the end of that? Because most of the time they're not discharged. So a couple things that you can do. One, you can try to separately classify your student loans to qualify for loan forgiveness and put it into an income-based repayment program or a pay-as-you-earn program, so that you're getting qualified payments throughout the life of that plan. Also, if you have an undue hardship, you can file what's called an adversary proceeding to try to discharge those student loans. We've been chipping away over the last couple of years at that undue hardship standard. It's still a very high standard. Usually there has to be medical issues or something else involved, and but you need an attorney to review that to see if you qualify for that. Also, what forces people into Chapter 13 sometimes it's usually two things. One, you have assets that you want to keep that you can't just pay for in a Chapter 7. You can't make a deal with a trustee. Or two, you're above what's called the median income. The median income for an individual in Florida is about $52,000. If you're husband and wife, it's about $60,000 or $62,000, and then it goes up from there. So If you're above that median income, now there are certain expenses you can take out of that, like secured payments or whatnot, then you can get kicked into a Chapter 13. So those are the reasons that you end up in that Chapter 13. The number one thing that I stress about the Chapter 13 process is it's great at working out secured debt, but don't wait too late. Don't wait until after your car has been repossessed. Don't wait until after your house is foreclosed on. Get in and see an attorney early. I just had a client call me yesterday. They had an 18-year-old judgment. That judgment has been gaining interest, for 18 years now. Started at 6,000, now is well upwards of 10,000. Purchased a car cash that was worth 25,000. That judgment creditor came and repossessed the vehicle. Yes, that can happen in Florida. Judgments are good for up to 30 years in Florida. And even with COVID, creditors are being very, very aggressive. So if you do have old judgments, and do a public record search on yourself, do a background search to see if there's anything still out there. If you remember, hey, back in the day I defaulted on some things, I wonder if there's any judgments. Look that up before you get your bank account garnished, you get your wages garnished, you get your car taken. Same thing with your home. I know a lot of people are going into forbearance because of the COVID forbearance, but you make sure you have a plan for when you're coming out of that forbearance. A lot of these mortgage companies are requiring that you get caught up very quickly once that period is up. So if the mortgage company is not working with you, don't let them take you into foreclosure, run up all those fees, and eat away at your equity. See a Chapter 13 attorney or a loan modification attorney very early in that process. Now, if you did wait too long and the car has been repossessed, there still are ways to get your car back in a Chapter 13. Now, there's majority, minority viewpoints of this, but we have been successful in getting vehicles back and then cramming them and paying them through that Chapter 13 plan. Now, there are some judges that say you're not allowed to do that. Once you lose the car, the only option is to redeem, which means pay the full amount owed on that vehicle. Obviously, that's pretty harsh, so we argue that the Chapter 13 is the best way to go, especially if you're going to lose your job because you don't have your vehicle. Another reason why people come in with regards to the Chapter 13, wage garnishments for student loans, debts, judgment debt, or otherwise, the Chapter 13 will stop the wage garnishment immediately. So if you get that notice, or if your employer gets that notice, come see me immediately, and we can get that garnishment stopped. So there's some misconceptions out there about Chapter 13 that basically Chapter 13 is debt consolidation. It's the same thing. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Debt consolidation is very, very different. Basically what you do with debt consolidation is you're making a payment to a consolidation company and they're trying to renegotiate terms with the creditors. Yet it ends up being a 4 to 5 year payment plan, and you pay usually 80 to 100% of the debt over that time. Any debt that is forgiven is potentially taxable. You would receive a 1099-C in the debt consolidation. In the Chapter 13, any debt that is discharged at the end is not taxed, so you don't get a 1099-C for that. Also, in a Chapter 13, you're protected from anybody bringing a legal action in state court against you. If they want to bring in any actions, the automatic stay prevents them from suing you, and they would have to come into the bankruptcy court. With the Chapter 13 as well, as we talked about earlier, you're going to do a payment plan based on your budget, which is very different than the debt consolidation. The creditor may not care about your budget, they just want to get paid. And usually the most aggressive creditors get paid in those situations. In a Chapter 13, all the unsecured creditors go into a pool, and then you just make your monthly payment to the trustee, and they get whatever portion they get. It's not really a negotiation. Now, Chapter 13, what are the long-term impacts of Chapter 13? It's only on your credit for 7 years, like anything else, instead of 10 years. Your credit's actually rebuilding while you're in the Chapter 13 plan, and it'll show on your credit that it has been a repayment plan. So it does look a little better on your credit than a Chapter 7. You can actually access credit while you're in Chapter 13. You just need to get approval from the court and the trustee. So if you needed to buy a vehicle, there's companies out there that will still finance you while you're in the Chapter 13. We also offer all of our clients the 720 credit score rebuilding program, which takes about 12 to 18 months to get your credit back up. Now I'm going to get into questions and answers in a second. So if you guys want to post any, oh, I already see some posts here. So let me answer some questions, then I'll go back into it. Do we get to keep a vehicle when we go Chapter 13? Absolutely. And not only do you get to keep it, you may be able to reduce the payment that is on your vehicle, and maybe reduce what you owe on that Chapter 13. Great information. Student loan debt is a killer, that's for sure. Hopefully, there are some ideas out there floated by Congress that they will discharge student loans in a Chapter 13. It may be a 7-year plan, which was just extended because of COVID for the first time that I've seen. So to me, my proposal was to have a super discharge, which is already precedent for that. If you go through a Chapter 13 plan for 7 years, you get a discharge of the student loans. It would really help out a lot of people that are struggling with significant student loan debt. You missed what I said about student loans in Chapter 13. So you can actually watch the replay. I'll give you a brief summary here. Chapter 13 will put your student loans into a repayment plan that will be paid out of the pot. You can also get into one of the income-driven repayment programs and separately classify them within the Chapter 13, or you could look at filing an adversary proceeding to try to discharge those student loans. Will family and friends know that you filed bankruptcy? That's a great question. So the general answer is no, unless you have a PACER account or other public access account, which mostly attorneys have, and you look up the name or social security number of somebody, you're not going to know they filed bankruptcy. You're going to make your payments discreetly on a website, or you can set up an auto pay. So there's no hat that you have to wear that says I filed bankruptcy, or T-shirt that comes along with this. It's really a discreet process, especially working with us. You know, we've worked with celebrity clients that have gone through this process: Chapter 13, Chapter 11, Chapter 7. Of course, we don't like to put their business out there. We don't like to put anybody's business out there. This is a business decision for you, and so many people have been affected and impacted by COVID-19 that unfortunately we're projecting the end of this year, and especially 2021, that there's going to be a huge increase in Chapter 13 and bankruptcy filings. Next question: will my landlord find out if I file a Chapter 13? So if you're behind with your landlord, they certainly will, and you can get caught up with landlords. I actually skipped over that part. If you're behind with your landlord, you can get caught up the same way with secured creditors over the Chapter 13 plan, meaning you can maintain your payment moving forward. If you had a rental payment of $1,100 a month and you were 1 month behind or 2 months behind and they were trying to evict you, would stop the eviction and you can get caught up. And at that point, your landlord certainly will know. If you do have an executory contract, those are supposed to be listed on the schedules, and the landlord will get a notice of that as well. Can my IRS payments be included in a Chapter 13? Yes, actually, your IRS payment is required to be included in a Chapter 13. What we do an analysis to determine what part of the IRS is secured, if they have a lien, what is priority, and what is unsecured. If it's general unsecured, which goes to the next question, is IRS debt dischargeable? If it's general unsecured, yes, it is dischargeable. If it's priority, it needs to be paid. If it's secured, it needs to be paid up to the value of the assets. So it's very similar to that vehicle that was worth $20,000 or worth $10,000. You owe $20,000. You only pay $10,000. If you have assets of $10,000 and there's an IRS lien of $20,000, once again we bring that down to the value of the assets, and you pay that over the 3 to 5 year period. George, yeah, I already answered George's yes, you get to keep the car when you go into Chapter 13. Lydia, what happens if my income decreases when in Chapter 13? Actually, you get to reduce your payment in a Chapter 13 if your income decreases. What we do is we modify the plan. The good thing about Chapter 13 is it's very flexible. So if your income goes down and the payment was based on your income, then the payment will go down. If the payment wasn't based on your income, if it was based on the liquidation analysis that we talked about earlier, or your secured debt, there's ways to stretch it out. You can try to work a balloon payment to make it work. But if your income goes down, the number one thing you want to do is talk to your attorney immediately before you default on those monthly payments and potentially get your case dismissed. Are the courts open? Do I have to attend bankruptcy proceedings in person? That's another great question. So the courts actually never closed here. When I say never closed, they closed as far as going in, but the judges were working from home. The judges did a great job in the Southern District of keeping things going so that there hasn't been a big backlog. 341 meetings were continued, and it caused some confusion for the clients. That's usually the only meeting that the client actually attends, and now everything's being done telephonically. There's been a learning curve with everything this year, but I think it's gone pretty smoothly, and it's really benefited our clients so they didn't have to miss a day of work to actually go to the courthouse and obviously expose themselves to the elements and being in a room with many other people during this. So I think it's been wildly successful. Our team has adapted great, and our clients have as well. So this really is one of the best times to file if you're going to file, for a couple reasons. One, it's a streamlined process where you can do everything virtually, so you don't even have to leave your house. We can do electronic signatures. You can attend the 341 meeting. We can do video chats to get everything through. And there's so many people that are going through this that, people are worried about the stigma of bankruptcy. I think COVID-19 is going to kill the stigma of bankruptcy just because so many people are filing, and it had nothing to do with anything that they did wrong. It just had their industry got shut down, or they lost their job because of COVID-19. So really, if you are struggling financially, if you find yourself borrowing from friends and family to pay creditors, that's the perfect time to give us a call, and we'll figure out what your best option is with regards to that. What makes an IRS debt unsecured, priority, or subject to discharge? So generally speaking, if it's older than 3 years, 3 tax years, and it's income tax, that would be dischargeable. You really need to do a little deeper analysis of that to see if there was any fraud involved, if you were actually avoiding filing for some reason, and when did you actually file your returns as well. But if you're older than three tax years, usually that will be unsecured. Priority will be everything else. General unsecured is dischargeable. Priority needs to be paid in full. So those are the two big differences there. So we're about 23 minutes in. I want to make sure I answer anybody else's question. I appreciate everybody jumping on. If you have any other questions, make sure you type those in. You could always email me as well. My direct email is Chad, C-H-A-D, @C, V as in Victor, H, laggroup.com. The phone number here is 954-637-0000. There's tons of helpful information on Van Horn Law Group as well. We're here on weekdays. We're here on the weekends. Saturday, we're 8 to 7 on weekdays. Saturday, we're here 10 to 3. There's also 2 books out there, The Debt Life, which I just wrote about personal experiences and clients that have been through things like Chapter 13. One of my favorite stories from that book was a client who went through the Chapter 13 process and had investment properties that he crammed through the 5-year period. He had 2 investment properties, and his payment was something like $7,000 a month. And he worked overtime at the hospital, and he worked in the cafeteria, and he worked overtime to make sure that he could make these payments. He was working like crazy, and he had income coming in from the properties as well. And at the end of that 5-year period, he had 2 income-producing properties he owned free and clear, and that was wildly successful. Obviously, paying $7,000 a month was not easy, and we had to modify any time that tenants would not pay or have to go through the eviction process. But that was a wildly successful case, and he had one of the most interesting names that I'll never forget his name. I'm not going to put it out there today, though. The other book is Bankruptcy in Florida, which is going to break down the process and give you a little bit more in-depth analysis of what it is to go through bankruptcy and what your options are. Of course, those books are a great start, but your best bet is to have an attorney take a look at your situation, see whether Chapter 13 makes sense for you. Sometimes Chapter 7 makes more sense. Sometimes doing nothing makes more sense. I just had a client who their assets are completely exempt, their income is Social Security. They really don't need to go through the bankruptcy process, and that was their decision not to. Certainly will give you your options. But you really want to set up a free consultation and just go through all of your options. So I'm going to give it a couple more minutes because I said I'd go to 12:30 today. If there are no other questions, we'll sign off and we'll set up another one. Please feel free to email me or message me with feedback. I've gotten good feedback from the last one that we did, and I hope that this is beneficial to the people that are watching it. You know, it takes a lot of work for my team to put these together, and once again, shout out to Artilis and Gabriella for just putting the outline together and setting this up. And thank you everybody for attending. Again, if you want to make an appointment, we just shared in the comment section how you can make an appointment. You can also get a free book if you'd like that as well. And we got one last question here from Jonathan. Will bankruptcy affect my other affairs, such as immigration proceedings? So I actually spoke to an immigration attorney about this. Bankruptcy does not impact immigration at all. Now, if you're here and you are not in a legal status, I don't recommend filing bankruptcy. Like if you have overstayed a visa or something like that, you know, get back to a legal status and then we can clear up your debt. I certainly don't want you going through a federal proceeding whenever that's pending. But if you are here in a legal status and you're applying for citizenship, this will not negatively impact your citizenship, and it'll actually oh, thank you, Steve. It'll actually help you out, help you get through that, so you don't have to stress about dealing with the debt judgments and lawsuits that are out there. Thank you everybody for attending. Once again, stay safe, stay healthy. If you need anything from me, I'm certainly here for you. I'm here 6 days a week to help you guys out. We're going to do another one of these in a couple weeks. If you have any topics that you want me to talk about, and if I actually know about that topic, I certainly would be happy to do that as well. So thank you all again, and stay safe out there.